I think I'm about ready for bed. Oh, hello, my little readers. Welcome to Nighty Night by Flashlight, read right here in Ruthy's reading room. My name is Ruthy, and this is my buddy Jaw, my favorite stuffy. He loves to read stories with me and share with all of you. We're about ready for bed, ready to just roll over and fall asleep. But we haven't read our story yet, and we were waiting for you. So in case you're not ready, let's go over the Nighty Night by Flashlight bedtime checklist. Let's start.
99. Night. Check. Put your teeth. Check. Put on your pajamas. Check. 99. Sorry. That.
Make sure you have your stuffy and flashlight. Now it's time for Nighty Night by Flashlight. So turn off the lights. Ready, set, shine. Turn on your flashlight. Let's begin and make sure you watch to the end. Tonight's bedtime story is Margret and H.A Reys' Curious George and the Firefighters. Let's begin. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, joined Mrs. Gray and her class on their field trip to the fire station. The fire chief was waiting for them right next to a big red fire truck. "Welcome," he said, and he led everyone upstairs to begin their tour. There was a kitchen with a big table, and there were snacks for everyone. The fire chief told them all about being a firefighter. George tried to pay attention, but there were so many things for a little monkey to explore, like that shiny silver pole in the corner. Where did that pole go? George was curious. Why, it went back downstairs. There was a big fire truck. There was a map of the city, and there was a whole wall full of coats and hats and big black boots. George had an idea. First, he stepped into a pair of boots. Next, he picked out a helmet. And finally, George put on a jacket. He was a firefighter. Suddenly, bring! Oh, what does that mean, kids? Fire alarm. The firefighters all rushed in. "This is not my helmet," said one. "My boots are too big," said another. "Hurry, hurry," called the fire chief. A bright red light on the map of the city told him just where the fire was. There was no time to waste. Uh-oh, I think George mixed up their uniforms. One by one, the firefighters jumped into the fire truck. And so did George. Off he ran. The fire truck with all the firefighters sped out of the firehouse, and so did George. The siren screamed and the lights flashed. Have you ever seen a fire truck rushing down the street? Meow, meow, meow. The truck turned right, then it turned left. Woo, 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 went the whistle, and George held on tight. And just like that, the fire truck and all the firefighters pulled up to a pizza parlor on Main Street. Smoke was coming out of a window in the back, and a crowd was gathering in the street. "Thank goodness you're here," cried the cook. Oh, the cook looks pretty worried. The firefighters rushed off the truck and started unwinding their hoses. They knew just what to do, and George was ready to help. He climbed up on the hose reel. One of the firefighters saw George trying to help, and he took George by the arm and led him out of the way. "A fire is no place for a monkey," he said to George. "You stay here where it's safe." George felt terrible. George sat on the bench and looked around. Next to him on the ground was a bucket full of balls. George reached in and took one out. It fit in his hand just right, like the apple he'd had for a snack. What do you think George is going to do? A little girl was watching George. He tried to give her the ball, but she was too frightened. George took another ball. And another. "Look," a boy said, "that monkey is juggling." The boy took a ball from the cage and tossed it to George, but it went too high. There it goes, sailing over his head. George climbed up onto the fire truck to get it. Now George had 4 balls to juggle. He threw the balls higher and higher. He juggled with his hands. He juggled with his feet. He could do all kinds of tricks. And look at the crowd. The boy threw another ball to George. George threw a ball back to the boy. The little girl reached down and picked up a ball too. Soon all the children were throwing and catching back and forth. Look, what fun. The fire chief came to tell everyone that the fire was out. Just then the little girl laughed and said, "Look, Mommy, a fire monkey." "Hey," called the fire chief, "what are you doing up there?" "What a wonderful idea," the little girl's mother said to the fire chief, "bringing this brave little monkey to help children when they're frightened." "Oh," the fire chief said, "well, thank you." That wasn't the fire chief's plan, was it? Before long, the fire truck was back at the firehouse, where a familiar voice called, "George?" It was a man with a yellow hat. "This little monkey had quite an adventure," said one of the firefighters. "Is everyone all right?" asked Mrs. Gray. Looks like he's part of the team now. "Yes, it was just a small fire," said the fire chief, "and George was a big help." Now the field trip was coming to an end, but there was one more treat in store. What do you think it could be? What do you think they're all going to do? All the children got to take a ride around the neighborhood on the shiny red fire truck, and they each got their very own fire helmet, even George, and it was just the right size for a brave little monkey. The end. What an adventure for curious George. Has a firefighter ever come to your school? Have you ever received a fire helmet? Isn't it fun? I hope you've enjoyed our bedtime story tonight. Don't forget to give Mommy and Daddy a kiss goodnight. Now it's time to roll over, and as we drift off to sleep, remember, the best place to read is wherever you are with a book. If you've enjoyed this bedtime story in Nighty Night by Flashlight, please remember to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up and hit the notification bell so you know when the next bedtime story will be read. Good night, little readers. Sweet dreams. Hey kids, send me a picture of your favorite stuffy. Include your stuffy's name and why it's your favorite. Get help from your grown-up and don't forget to subscribe. Details in the description below.